Hey there, I'm Adam from Judoscale, and I want to show you how you can use Judoscale to autoscale your render services. So right here, I'm in my render dashboard, and I have a couple example services that I want to set up with Judoscale. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to judoscale.com to create a new account. So we are looking for render, and let's set it up. So to create my account, I'm just going to put in my info here. And the first thing Judoscale is going to ask when we're in there is to choose our hosting platform. And we're doing render. Now, Judoscale needs our render API key so that it can connect and link our render services. So I'm going to click this link to jump over to my render settings. And I'll create a new API key. I'll call it Judo Demo. I'm going to copy this, and I am done with this tab. I'll paste it back in Judoscale and connect to render. So at this point, Judoscale is going to show all of my render teams. So I've got a personal team on render and I've got a company team on render. So I'm going to link this Dunder Mifflin team to Judoscale. And immediately we see our Judoscale team dashboard with all of our render services in there. And I want to set up autoscaling. So I want to set up autoscaling on the web service first here. And I'm just going to tell Judoscale what kind of app this is. This happens to be a Rails app that uses Sidekick. And now Judoscale is giving us some information on how to set up the Judoscale adapter. The Judoscale adapter is what lets Judoscale collect queue time metrics from your application. So I'm going to copy these lines out of here, and I'm going to paste those lines into my gem file. And then I'll run bundle to install those gems. And then I just need to commit and deploy. Okay, so I went ahead and deployed those changes, and we can verify that in render here. We see that the deploys succeeded just a minute ago for web and worker, since they're both part of the same code base. And now we can hop over to Judoscale and say finished and deployed. And Judoscale sees that we've set up our adapter, and we are done here. But there's not really anything interesting to see because this app, this web service, is not getting any traffic right now. So there's no throughput, there's no queue time. Let's change that. Let's actually open up this app. And this is just a little demo app that makes it easy to test and play with various autoscalers. It lets us configure how long we want each request to take. And this particular web service I've configured to be single-threaded, single process, so not a very performant configuration, but it makes it easy to demo stuff like this. Because I can just fire off a few of these requests, and I'm just going to pop them open in different tabs so that I can click this a few times. Each of these requests is going to take a second, and I'm clicking this button more than once per second. And since we have a single-threaded web service, that's going to cause some queuing. Let me go ahead and close all these extra tabs. And now if we bounce over to Judoscale, we see that our queue time is skyrocketing, and we see a little bit of throughput there. Of course, we don't see any autoscaling yet because we haven't turned autoscaling on yet. So let's change that. So autoscaling is on. If we do the same thing again, fire off a bunch of these requests. Again, close a bunch of these windows. You can see they're taking a while because of all the request queuing. We can go ahead and close them anyway. And if we look over in Judoscale, we'll see that our queue time has jumped up again, and we're at 2 instances here. And in just a second, we'll see that reflected in the chart over here as well. There we can see the second instance pop up. They kind of stack on top of each other like servers. And that's autoscaling in action using request queue time. Now let's take a look at the settings here that actually drive these decisions. First setting is our target queue time range. This is giving a range that's really the sweet spot for where we are comfortable with our request queue time sitting. So 25 to 50 milliseconds is a good just sort of general default range. You probably don't need to change it, but you might decide to, depending on the behavior of your application. But what this means is if queue time goes above 50 milliseconds, Judoscale will scale you up right away and add another instance. Once you're up there, to scale back down, Judoscale will wait until queue time remains below this 25 milliseconds for a period of time. Now that period of time is defined by another setting, so I'm going to jump down a bit to this downscale delay. The downscale delay tells Judoscale how long to wait before scaling down. It's going to watch and make sure that queue time is below that 25 milliseconds for a full 10 minutes as we have it set up here. So you can configure this to be as short or as long as you want, depending on how quickly you want to downscale. And we've got a similar setting for upscale. So upscaling happens immediately as soon as request queue time breaches that upper threshold. But then it's only going to repeatedly upscale as frequently as this control specifies if queue time remains above that threshold. So you may decide, depending on how aggressively you want to upscale, you may decide to shorten this. Another option for upscaling aggressively is this upscale jumps. This will let you scale up by more than one instance at a time. If you get huge influxes of traffic and you want to scale by 2, 3, 4, whatever instances at a time, you can do that with Judoscale. And the other setting here is just the number of instances. So the way it's configured here from 1 to 6 instances means that Judoscale is going to scale you up as needed up to 6 instances, but Judoscale will never take you above 6 instances. So this is more of a cost control measure. You just want to make sure that no matter what happens, Judoscale doesn't take you above the number that you're comfortable with. And likewise, if you want to always have redundancy, maybe you don't want to scale down to 1, even if queue time is really low, maybe you want to have multiple instances running at all times. So that is autoscaling on our web service. Let's jump over to our worker service. Once again, we just need to tell it the stack, which is exactly the same because it's the same code base. And the adapter's been set up, again, because it is the same code base and we've already set up the gems there. Once again, nothing interesting happening here, so let's change that. Let's go to our app, and we have the ability to enqueue some jobs here. Let's just enqueue 50 jobs that are each going to take a second. Go ahead and enqueue those. Now we can see the urgent queue has 49 jobs in it. I'm going to refresh this, and we'll see latency is starting to pick up as the jobs are waiting. Again, the Sidekick, I have Sidekick also configured to be single-threaded. Not ideal, but good for testing this kind of thing. And if we jump over to Judoscale, we'll see our queue time, our job queue time is spiking up there. Again, we haven't enabled autoscaling, so we're not autoscaling yet. In terms of the settings, they are all exactly the same. The queue time range just has some different defaults because measuring queue time in milliseconds doesn't make a lot of sense for jobs. But we also have this queues option. I'm actually going to refresh this so that it shows our new urgent queue that wasn't there before. So Judoscale needs to know which queues to monitor that'll trigger autoscaling. You might have 10 different queues, but some of them might be some lower priority queues that you don't want to trigger autoscaling. Or maybe you have several services, each processing different queues. This is where you would tell Judoscale which queues are applicable to this service. Other than that, all of the other settings are the same. And that is how to get Judoscale set up for your render services. If you need help, go up to the top here, click the help menu. You can send us an email, we'll get back to you within a day, or you can schedule a call with us so we can screen share if you're having an issue that you want to show us, and our docs are there as well. I hope this was helpful. Again, my name's Adam, and I will see you next time.